Would you accept an invitation to the royal palace? Yes or no? Well, that's the question we're discussing in this episode of The Unlikely Alliance. Are you upholding the system or are you trying to change it? Thank you so much, Kelechi. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
We are joined by a powerhouse today. Kelechi, she is award-winning writer, a presenter, a sharp social commentator, and a tour de force, bringing fresh perspective on our discussions on both race, oppression, femininity, and also just systems and structures in its wider sense. So, Kelechi, once again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
So today's discussion is going to be slightly different. So usually with the Unlikely Alliance podcast, we're discovering stories, we're having a discussion about people's journeys. Today is going to be about a particular moment and a particular discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let you explain, but to provide some context, I was scrolling through my Instagram, and as I do, I come across your content, always insightful. And there was one particular video which was around the time of a reception where you were kind of giving views on a reception with the royal family.
Yes.
So over to you, Kelechi. What were the views? And
so the main thing was we had the president of Nigeria come to visit, a state visit, and, mingle with King Charles. And there were lots of people who attended. And I had an issue with that because I just thought to myself, why are we legitimizing nonsense? Just thinking about the monarchy, what the monarchy stands for, what the monarchy means in terms of the history of Nigeria. I was just I was unnerved by it. Because to me, it's the equivalent of an enslaver. And then considering the palace as the master's house. And so you've stolen all of these things, you've been enslaved for ages, and then one day they say, oh, well, the head of you lot, you can come inside, we're having a party and some of you can come in. Some of you can come and visit. And everybody's like clamoring over themselves to go inside and like touch the cutlery, and they're so excited and they've got photos. Should we not be dismantling the house?
And on that note, I should kick off by saying I actually attended. But I attended that and reception. And why I wanted to have this discussion, because actually, and I was saying this to you, and thank you for your time again. Yeah. Like, these are the discussions that will be happening in WhatsApp groups. These are the discussions that will be happening in kitchen tables, in living rooms, about actually the approach to establishment, the approach to engagement. As you say, it was a Nigerian president visit, it was the Nigerian diaspora, and I wanted to explore a little bit about why I attended. And in preparation of this discussion, I've also spoken to others who attended as well. Yeah. And so it'd be good to have a discussion about that as well. But you do bring up a really important point. And ultimately, it's a question about, do you legitimize by engaging with those structures, or do you seek to change those structures, some will argue, from within? So I will talk a little bit about why I decided to go along as well. So as you say, it was a celebration of Nigerians in the diaspora. It was a recognition of many of their achievements from different sectors. And one thing I found from attending actually was just seeing the impressive nature from people from different sectors, different levels of ambition, different levels of achievement, all killing it in their own field. And what was sad was that actually I can't remember any other time when that's been an opportunity where people have been brought together to be able to do that. And so one thing I particularly took away was actually ability to bring people together is such a powerful tool. And I reflect on a conversation you had with George the Poet. Yes. Really, really good discussion. I would encourage anybody to tune into your podcast and listen to that discussion. Thank you. And you were talking, and George the Poet, both of you were talking about the importance of his book track record and talking about people connecting within the Black community from different sectors. So he was talking about his relationship with Link Up TV and how he was connected with others. And I think that pretty much lies at the heart of why I decided to go as well. Because actually, if you do want to change things, you do need to be able to link up with people from different sectors, from different areas who are killing it in their own field. And so I wanted to reflect on that. What would you say to people who were saying, actually, this is an opportunity. Let's park the royal family for a moment. This is an opportunity to come together with leading people in different sectors who are killing it. And if you do want to be able to change things, that's how you change things, surely.
Yes and no, because we can't essentially park the royal family, because why did it take the royal family to bring everyone together? If we're saying that all of these people are killing it in their fields, is this the first time that they're hearing of each other? Is this the first time that they're seeing each other? I would imagine that within their fields, then they hold some sort of relative power, influence, impact. So why wasn't that? Why isn't that being utilised? Why aren't we getting together outside of these antiquated and draconian systems in order to recognise each other? You know, controversially speaking, and some might find this contentious, I might not be too sure that I would get on with people who would have accepted the invitation, because what makes it so aspirational? Like, what does this person see there that they think, oh, this is a big moment for me? Because that would tell me that they likely have some kind of dredges of a type of colonial mindset that might not help me where I'm going. I appreciate what they're doing. And I think the sad thing about this is everybody deserves to be recognized. There were absolutely amazing people who attended. I'm not disputing their talent and their impact and the work that they've done. Doesn't need to be recognized by that specific entity. That's, to me, the issue. And some people argue, okay, so how much do we participate in the system then? If you're saying, well, we can't go to the palaces and we shouldn't be doing this. I understand participating with your government. Participating with what you tell me to be is a figurehead, right? They don't hold any power, or do they? Which one is it? Because if they don't hold power, then why are we so excited to be at the palace? But if they do hold power, where does that power come from? And why are we still letting them have it?
I think that's an important question. So let's drill into that a little bit in terms of what power they do have and why is it important and why it's important in their space. I think it's important to start off with, this is not a case for the royal family. I've got questions about their conduct. I feel like actually people that I've spoken to also said, actually, this is perhaps not, they're not back in the royal family. They don't feel like, actually, for all the reasons you set out, it has been a system and an institution that over the years has, through colonialism and through slavery, has sought to oppress, and there's no getting away from that. So it's important to recognise that. The question would be, reflecting back on that point you've made as well, to what degree do you engage?
Yes.
And how do you, and I would ask, how do you collectively change things if you are not engaging in some parts of the structure?
Yeah, we have to engage in a structure to a certain degree. When we start legitimizing the structure, pretending that there's no way to imagine something new, I feel like ultimately that's the issue for me. A lot of the people who talk about wanting to go inside the house and change things from within, or you have to have a seat at the table, I always ask, okay, so what have you changed? For all the time that you have spent in that house, all the time that you have spent at that table, what do the poorest people in your neighborhood have to show for what you've gone to do there? Because oftentimes I do find that it's a bit of a smokescreen. It's this, don't worry, I'm going to be back. I'll be back soon. No, we know that they say power corrupts.
Yeah.
And absolute power corrupts, absolutely. I often think that once you do enter into those situations, once you do start mingling with people, you're like the things that you value and the stakes become higher, because you become intertwined with other people who might be able to help you as an individual and maybe a small group of people achieve what you want to achieve. But by being able to do that, other people are going to suffer. So I just wonder, there has to be a balance. I'm not saying that people shouldn't participate in the system, but I'm asking, are you a co-conspirator? Are you going to be subversive? Are you actually going in there for the betterment of people outside? Or are you going to come and tell us in 5 years' time, oh, it's because you didn't pull yourself up by the bootstraps, that's why you don't have anything? We should be challenging more the systems that are in place. It's not enough to participate. If we are going into those systems, we must consider disruption as well.
And disruption is absolutely central to that. And I think ultimately, as you quite rightly say, that I wouldn't even say tension, that combination of approaches between disruption and constructive changing. But you're quite right. You need to be able to challenge yourself to be able to say, if you're actually in those spaces, have you actually changed anything? And if you can't look at yourself and think, actually, you haven't changed anything, then there's an issue there. Something I wanted to reflect upon. So it's called symbolic annihilation. So essentially it was a theory. Basically, it means you can't be what you can't see.
Yes.
And it's a theory from George Gardner, who was a professor in Pennsylvania in the 70s. And what the central thing was that basically the media and actually mainstream institutions have created things, and you've talked about this a lot, have created networks, and how its coverage means that certain parts of our community don't get covered.
Yes.
And it's probably fair to say, actually, when you look over the decades, a lot of them look like us.
Yes.
And the question would be, isn't spaces and showing up in spaces like that shining a light at a point when over many decades, a light hasn't been shone on those individuals or what they're achieving as well? Taking on board the point that you're saying in respect of the royal family, but is it not shining a light at a point that otherwise a light would not be shined in society more widely, not just the royal family?
Yes, we need for our talents and we need for our things to be seen, absolutely. But again, the fact that we say not just them, but the people that hold the light, they hold the direction that they get to move the light. That's the actual issue. It's not, when we've been seen and how much we've been seen. We need to take it away. We need to take the power away from the people who can control the light. Why do they have the light? Why are they the ones able to illuminate that which they deem celebratory? And then that would then mean that they hold the metrics for what is deemed success and what isn't. And so then we become trapped in another type of dynamic as well. So to me, the issue has always been the hierarchy that's put in place. And some people were very upset with my videos who attended, and they came to write their comments that they later deleted. But, they wrote their comments and they said, maybe it's because you weren't invited, so you might be jealous. And that is exactly my point.
Yeah.
The exceptionalism that it poisons us with, to think that the reason that I might not be there is because I wasn't quite excellent enough, as opposed to me having the autonomy to have been speaking out for quite some time now about this particular issue. So nobody in their right mind who works there would say, hey, this is the person that we go to. Unfortunately, people who question the system aren't usually invited to the things that the system's doing in order to protect itself. So those who are invited, I would imagine, or those who do get a light shone on them, at times, it's because when that light shines, the person or the institution shining the light knows that they won't see anything that they don't like about themselves. So that also might be something for us to consider. Palatability. There are so many successful people. There are so many incredible people in our communities that we don't ever get to see because they might be a little bit too outspoken, or they might be doing things in a particular way that if a light were to be shone on them, it would show how it would show the cracks basically in the system. So I do feel like we need to be celebrated. But again, I argue, why aren't we celebrating each other? As much criticism as people might have for, an event like the MOBO Awards with Kanye King, as people might have their criticisms for how it's run or whatever, but that was instrumental, having the MOBO Awards, for us to recognize ourselves. And there was a point where people were vying to receive a MOBO Award, I don't know, through funding and things. Things change. We should have the equivalent. And there are so many different types of awards that exist. But these change makers, these movers and shakers, why aren't they creating a consortium where they are putting their leverage together, consolidating their leverage in order to have the kind of award or something that we can all then aspire to, and then we are shining a light on each other? Do
you know what's beautiful about that? In that it's remarkable about the things that we agree on. One of the conversations I had following it was actually, isn't it a shame that we're not creating spaces? So should we work to create our own spaces to be able to celebrate each other and to be able to work with each other as well? And I think ultimately our conversation so far is broken into the fact that the system, we fundamentally see flaws in the system and actually needs fundamental change. And whether that's institutions that need change, royal family is an institution, or whether it be individuals or whether it be spaces as well. And so I guess let's reflect back to how previous generations looked at it. And so I think about the civil rights generation, because that's the big generation that had similar questions as to how do you approach these things? To what degree do you knock on the door really loudly to make sure actually you're hearing me? To what degree are you in the room? Yeah. And to what degree are they working together? And I think that's the big question. And a couple of examples, Rosa Parks and Marianne Elderman. Marianne Elderman had a quote where basically she said, if you want to see the change in the world, you have to be able to do it and you have to be present. And so I wanted to discuss that briefly. Like, don't you feel that actually we both agree that you need to be able to change the system?
Yes.
Isn't there a space for people who feel actually you need to speak truth to power, but you can speak truth to power as an insurgent, as somebody who is, as a rebel, but you could also speak truth to power, actually shaping decisions and shaping. Do you feel those two can cohabitate?
We need all of it, because we can't all do everything. There are those who recognize the problem, and there are those who have the skills and abilities to change what the problem that has been recognized. We need each other in all of this. We all have a role to play. We can't all be the mechanics, right? Yeah. Or we can't all be the drivers. We have to work together in order to create the vehicle of liberation that serves us all. And ultimately, we're thinking in false binaries of it's either or. But whenever I'm given the example of, but you have to be part of the system to change it. Show me who has changed it, you know? And it's brilliant, the examples you bring when we look at the civil rights movement, when we look, even further than that. And I think about Huey P. Newton.
Yeah.
What did the Black Panthers do wrong? What did they do wrong? Other than say that they were going to feed children. That was the most offensive part.
Coalition.
Yeah, that was the most offensive part of all of this. That they recognized in each other that nobody's free while anybody else is unfree. So as you say, the Rainbow Coalition, we have to work together on this. If we're like, it's a class issue, it's a race issue, they convolute and, they coalesce, like we need each other. Started feeding children. Started doing a bit of self-defense, started doing all of these things. But I think the most dangerous thing that they did was start to form community outside of the systems that already existed, and that became a problem. Anybody that was looking to form community that was viable, that could thrive, that had the possibility of doing well, had to be taken out, and taken out rather violently. So if it was such if it wasn't such a big deal, if the system wasn't so worried about it and the institutions weren't so worried about it, why were they killed so violently, right? And so I say the things that I say, and I also can hold space for the fact that subconsciously, as a collective, if we're talking about the collective subconscious, as specifically Black people in this country, the diaspora, maybe the reason that we play the game and we don't try to push the needle too far is because we have been shown examples of what happens when you do. Because it's not necessarily about the rebel rousers who are like screaming, shouting. It's the people who say, come to my place and eat food, or let's set up a community garden and let's grow something together. That we wouldn't have had the issue of the spy cops. Who are they spying on? Environmentalist groups. So it's not this whole, this anarchy. The problem, I think, the real threat is love. It's us loving each other and seeing each other. Because once we start seeing each other, seeing the power that we all hold, the impact that we have interpersonally, laterally, that's going to mean that we don't care about what's happening vertically. We don't hold as much reverence for it.
Wow. I think we should pause there for a moment. But I think the importance of love is so important, and just also, and I welcome the fact that you agree that actually you do need to be able to build out those coalition, and that's what Unlikely Alliance is all about. Actually identifying the difference with others, and actually how can you work together to be able to address those differences. Far too much of our society, we're put in silos, we're put in boxes. And far too often we play up to those boxes, whether it be exceptionalism, whether it be dogma, whether it be, even the views on immigration, far right. So much of it is being put into boxes and trying to other groups of people, and not playing into that is so important. One of the things I said post the reception was actually, like you said, there were so many people who weren't in the room.
Yes.
Our emergency workers, people propping up our NHS, people who are working night and day, people who are serving in our community, who are doing fundamentally, are shifting the agenda for our community, but also are propping up society more widely as well. Do you feel the system is beyond repair?
Yes.
Why?
Unequivocally, because it's not serving us. Why do I it brings tears to my eyes when I'm going down Embankment and I see so many tents out. So many people don't have anywhere to live. We've got so many empty places that have been bought by shell companies to serve this purpose and that purpose. It just feels like a massive money laundering scheme. People aren't able to feed their children. During last summer holiday, or when it was coming to the end of the last summer holidays, I took money that I had that I'd put to the side, took it to a local hair salon and said, can I pay for 22 children to get their hair done, whether it's cut or braided, before they go back to school? And the reason I was doing that is because I'm tired of hearing conversations about youth violence. The cause of youth violence ultimately is poverty, right? And so what are we doing to help the families that are most vulnerable in our community? I'm not saying a little haircut or having your hair braided with beads is going to fix the issue, but likely if you feel that you look good, when an older comes to you and says, oh, here's £50, go and do this for me, you're less likely to go and do that thing because you know that there's a community that's got you. And how can we roll that out in the long term? Like, that's what I would want to do. Like, let's make this a thing that is across the boroughs. Like, let's make sure that this is widely funded. These things, like it's the, we talk about hard power, soft power. It's this, this is what lets young people know that my community cares about me. Somebody cares about me. And if somebody cares about me, then I don't have to participate in these things. And I just don't think that the systems we have in place are doing that enough. Instead, what we have is this false benevolence and this false altruism, where it's just like, we'll give you some crumbs here. Look at what we've done. And we have a massive press rollout for this little thing that we've done, when in the grand scheme of things, what's it actually changing? We have to face that this system isn't serving any of us. If we're not in the top 1%, it is not serving any of us. And what we might need to do, most likely, is to take it down completely and start again. That's already happening, whether we like it or not, with reform. And it's the uncomfortable truth that people don't want to have. The fact that the majority of people in this country, I was saying it to a friend yesterday, I was on their podcast, and I said, I feel like I'm a Londoner before I'm British, right? But there are British people, right? And English people who hold dear their identity that's it's linked with the monarchy, it's linked to so many things, and everything's coming apart. Nobody's making space for the fear that they feel, because they're being exploited by the people who are noticing that fear, and they're being told, oh, it's the immigrants, take out your frustration on them, or it's trans people, take out your frustration on them, when actually, no, it's this system is very top heavy. It's not fair. And how do we make it fair? People who have power aren't just going to randomly relinquish it. So we have to take the whole thing down, start again. But we can sometimes get preoccupied with the external powers. If we haven't addressed our internal oppressor, we have no chance at creating a whole new system. And this is why, ultimately, to circle back, I was talking about why people needed the validation of going to the palace. Because if in our psyche somewhere we still see that as something to aspire to, no matter what we build, we are going to inadvertently put back someone or something or a group of people who are higher than everybody else. And we're going to find ourselves back in the same position.
There will be those that say that actually it being at the palace was just purely circumstantial. That if there was something similar that brought together leading people across different sectors,
but we don't have any other venues.
There was. What do you say to that? What do you say to that?
How many venues do we have in the UK? In London alone, we have enough venues that could have taken place in.
But then I think that's back to the point you were making, that actually, because nobody has gone around at there has been elements of it, but nobody has done that cross sectors. I think there's been, there's awards for particular sectors, but I don't think there's been anything across sectors. And I think that's a challenge to us. I agree. Do you feel that actually some people may say, actually, if there was something and the challenges to them is, well, go and create it, that they would feel just the same as attending that?
No, because it doesn't hold the same esteem. It was getting that fancy card with the royal crown or whatever that was on it. That it's the esteem of it. There are people who have awards all the time and say, hey, we love your work. We'd love you to come through. Sorry, I'm busy. I'm away. I can't make it. Because it doesn't hold the same sort of, it doesn't hold the same appeal. We have to have something that holds the same appeal, and we have to ask ourselves, why? Why do we think that that is better than this? If I said to everybody tomorrow, across sectors, I've been watching your work and I'd love to invite you to whatever venue I've booked to honour you, are they going to show up?
Well, let's organise it. Let's organise it to see how many people show up.
Watch.
I know. We're announcing it here first. No, I take the point you're making. But the reason why I say that is, and I generally get, there is something innate about esteem, and then there is, there's a question about where we place our esteem. What I would say, though, is that surely that you can not, how do I put this? You can say you fundamentally disagree with something, like you could disagree with the national government, but engage with it.
Yes. And people are going to have to engage with reform if they get into power. I might have to engage with reform. So do you feel
the same applies to other institutions like the royal family then?
No, because if I'm going to engage with reform, I'm not going to shake their hand and be grinning. I'm not going to be grinning with Nigel Farage. But I know that if there's something that I'm working on, you now hold the purse strings. I've got to interact with you because I need what you've got, that funding that you've got in those purse strings. I need it. I'm not going to be happy about it, but I'm going to do it. The issue is, no, people were happy to be there. And that, to me, is okay. We are at different stages of learning. And I think that one of the most revolutionary things that we can do as individuals is have compassion for people. Sometimes how I go about delivering things on social media is intentional, right? And the intentionality of that specific thing was because we had on one end, everybody grinning, shaking hands with Charles. So I had to come from the other side. I had to come from the other side and be like, this is, ridiculous. When actually, in reality, where I am is a bit softer than that, because I get it. I get that people would want to be recognised for the incredible work that they've been doing. Not a single individual who was there doesn't deserve to be recognised. I'm just asking, why do we have to be recognised by them is the thing. So what do we, as you're saying, rightly so, what do we put in its place? What are we doing to recognise each other? So we're not looking to, in my opinion, just my opinion, antiquated, draconian, necrophilic, sometimes some might argue paedophilic, colonialist entities to recognise us. That is like, our self-esteem must be in the gutter if, knowing what this institution stands for, we still feel proud to even be seen in a photo with any of their representatives.
I wanted to, we're going to come back to that in a second, but I wanted to go back to the point you made about the work you've done in terms of supporting young people.
Yeah.
And firstly, kudos, like absolute credit for that. And I was thinking as you said that, it links back to the point around love, that actually you were showing love, somebody was showing love to them, and that's really important. And reflecting back on the civil rights movement, because that systemic point, is the system broken? I guess there's a reason why a lot of the civil rights leaders, they argued for civil disobedience. And, we can debate what level of civil disobedience, but all of them also argued for mass participation in voting.
Yes.
So they understood the importance of, yes, civil disobedience, but also mass participation in voting. Do you feel that actually you could change things? I know the system is fundamentally flawed. You could change things if you voted.
For now, especially because of the times we're in, people go vote. Do your thing, because reform voters are voting. Parties that we wouldn't want to have power, they are managing to get in with the people that they want, get in with their potential voters and get the results that they want out of them. I would say that other parties, not so much. They're not doing the same. They're not showing the love, right? As weird and as it's just nasty as it might be to an outsider looking in. Those voters feel seen in a way that other people don't feel seen, so they don't know which party to go to, so they feel politically homeless, and they're sort of hanging around. And for a lot of people right now, the Green Party feel like that they understand to a certain degree, I would argue. But ultimately, because of where we are, because of the climate that we're in, yes, go and vote. My issue is the options that people have.
Yeah.
And will those people be corrupted by the system? Right? That's my thing.
Yeah.
But absolutely, yeah, go vote. Do what you're doing.
I welcome that, because I one of the big issues I've always had, and you raised an important point about the quality of parties, the quality of candidates. We can talk about that all day. But one of the issues I've always had is, whether you look at the stats, like the last election, 2024, 70% average turnout was 70%. Within our community, within the Black community, is around 55%. And I feel that directly, if you think about opinion polls and where they are at the moment, Reform being elected in places up and down the country, and situations where a Reform councillor who's been recently elected can feel and can be backed up by the leadership, and not condemned in the way that it should be for tweeting and saying that you could use Nigerians to fill, you can melt Nigerians to fill potholes. It does show the danger if there's mass vacation of the field and we allow others to be able to dictate who are not necessarily, who don't share our values, who have views in terms of those councillors who are absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah, but it's not a failing on, for instance, on Reform's part. It's a failing on the part of the parties that should be making people feel that they are worth voting for. And oftentimes I find that a lot of people are spoken to in a condescending way. It doesn't feel legitimate. People are worried about where a lot of parties are getting their funding from. And that's the real issue.
Yeah.
It's, the people who are aware enough, they're like, but why am I going to come to you when these are the people that are your lobbyists, and you're going to take my vote and you're going to go and do something that disappoints me in the long run. People want authenticity. They want to know that they're safe. They want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they matter. Ultimately, the people who aren't showing up, who could vote, do not feel like they matter. Or they feel that they matter so much that they're not just going to fling out their votes anywhere. So, oh my God, Reform is so terrible. Sure. But what is anybody else doing to counter that? Not enough, because we're still bothering about having carefully curated speeches when people are dying, people are hungry, they don't care. Nigel Farage isn't an orator.
Yeah.
The local, the councillors that got these seats, they can't. I don't even know if all the brain cells are connecting in their heads.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it goes to show it's an indictment on everybody else. Like, what have you been doing if this could happen? And so I wonder if actually it's by design. We talk about, oh, is the system broken? The system is not broken. The system is perfect. The system is wonderful. It is doing exactly what it was constructed to do, which is to keep us broken. So unless we heal as people, we cannot challenge a system that presents itself to us almost with like weaponized incompetence. Like, oh, sorry, that was an oversight. And oh, sorry, this happened. When it's like, no, it's happening as it should. When we face that very, very hard truth that the systems are working as they are meant to, we can grieve it. We can mourn the life that we probably should have had if the system was working in our favour. Unfortunately, that system wasn't working in our favour. So what are we going to do about it?
And crucially, you can know the tools that you could be able to fight back as well and change things as well. Our time is fast spent, but generally, I've really enjoyed this conversation. And part of it is just understanding, and why I really wanted to have this conversation is understanding where different perspectives are coming from, and understanding, and as you quite rightly put, people who attend things and go to things, they, of course, they're coming at it from a genuine place. And for all the reasons you set out, there does need to be, it's an individual decision, and to understand why you've made that decision and reflecting inwardly to understand, actually, are you validating, are you seeking validation from a system or from an institution that's fundamentally flawed in areas as well? I wanted to end on a couple of points, which is, when we say, far too often that the system is working as it is, do you feel that it's because I I think participation comes in many forms. Participation comes in voting. Participation also comes in being active. But I take on board the point you made in terms of not being condescending and actually how are we bringing politics to people?
Yes.
So what do you feel in the 21st century? We're here in 2026 in May. What could politics do more to be able to be more accessible, not just accessible, but to be more rooted in the people it's seeking to serve?
Yeah.
And also, particularly given the fact we're talking about systems, in a way that actually seems to fundamentally rupture systems that are too often antiquated.
I would say one of the fundamental things is to not be scared of criticism. You know, you mentioned so eloquently earlier about the light, like people just, you know, finally a light is being shone on us. Who's controlling the light? All of that stuff. You can't be scared if you shine the light on a particular person and they say, hey, over there, by the way, I think this of you as well. Because how do you know what you need to change if you won't let the truth be spoken? We have to welcome truth. And I say truth when really it's truths, because people are having different experiences. People are existing in different realities from us simultaneously. We have to welcome that. And it might feel a bit rubbish to hear somebody say, after all the work that you as an individual think that you've put in for years, all the sacrifices you've made in order to be in a particular role, to challenge the things that are happening, to hear somebody say, I don't think you've done much actually. To them, you haven't. So how can somebody change that rather than going, oh, well, let's not listen to them. Let's just listen to the people who do like what we're doing. And that's the problem. Then you'll never get any new people.
I think that's such a good way to end it. It's the ability to, like, you know, honestly, it's the ability to understand people come at different views on things. And they're not being, at that point about silos, they're not being deliberative critical to be abusive or to be rude or to be antagonistic. Is from a point of, this is the impact it's had on my life and I want somebody to care. Back to that love point. And I think far too often, you're right, in politics, far too often people are unable to do that. And actually, one of my big concerns as well is that actually when we think about podcast forms, in America, the right are very effective in creating spaces where they're happy to be challenged, and the left far too often are wary of being challenged. And you cannot go to win people over if you're scared of hearing their views. And, you know, this is what this conversation's always been about and what a Likely Alliance has always been about. So, no, thank you so much for this conversation. I think it's been challenging in terms of understanding where people are coming from and actually challenging the notion of, you know, where do we get validation from? Understanding why people go to things, but also understanding and challenging in terms of where, you know, are you propping up a system more widely as well? Kelechi, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully speak again soon.
Definitely. Thank you.
Take care.